Yes, that would be nice.
Okay, is this hot? Is this one on? The mic? Okay, it says given the niche audience, and especially an elite and literate audience, how can we argue that John's Gospel should be our basis for evangelism to all kinds of people?
Except you be converted and become as little children, you shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven. The gospel is the same and simple for the most erudite person and for the youngest child. So a gospel message written for the erudite is also good for children. And I have used this gospel many times with children.
The question says, what are some ways we could use John 13 through 17 to share the gospel?
I think we could use it just as we've suggested here, that this is more than a man who is preparing for death. This is somebody with supernatural knowledge who knows what is beyond death and where he's going and what the future of his disciples will be. We could use all those factors as indicators that Jesus is indeed the Christ.
Also, was John's the fourth gospel, was it written before or after John's exile to Patmos?
I think the evidence points to the fact that all of the Gospels were written before 70 A.D., before the destruction of Jerusalem. That would put it well before his exile to Patmos. Yes, I would say in the 60s somewhere.
Okay, how does the last discourse fit with John 20, 30, and 31, especially in reference to these signs, because there doesn't appear to be any signs in John 13 to 17?
I'm glad they asked that, because that's my subject tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, and I will answer that.
All right, here's another question. Well, this is a little bit off topic. Do you want to answer a question about the present tense in Greek?
I'll be happy to try.
Okay, it says, there is too much unwarranted consensus among Greek scholars that the present tense carries a continual aspect. Do you know of any recent scholars who are writing in opposition to this position?
Well, of course, Lowe is still living, and you will find now in the scholarly literature that a number of the scholars are backing off of the extreme statements here, and they're modifying their previous position, and they're saying, in effect, we can't really decide on the basis of the tense what the action is. But let's admit that the conclusions reached by Lowe have not yet filtered down to the scholarly riffraff. And
okay.
I guess I have to include myself in that number.
Okay, here's one. Was before Judas left, was Jesus giving Judas one last opportunity to come to faith?
They told us before we started teaching seminary that the most useful 3 words in the English language were, I don't know. I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me if that were so. I don't think it's John's intention to communicate that.
Okay, one final one. And this says, why absent any evangelistic verse in John 13 through 17? I guess they mean any explicit statement like we find in John 3:16, which we find a lot in chapters 1 through 12. Why not some kind of a statement like that in 13 through 17?
Well, actually, you would be surprised at the number of times the word believe is used in the so-called upper room discourse, the last discourse. And particularly that first quotation that I gave you, that when it happens, you may believe that I am He. That's what He said to the unbelieving Jews. If you do not believe that I am He, you shall die in your sins. And then He goes on to say that the one who receives me receives the one who sent me. I'm God's representative here. That's a pretty good, clear statement, I think.
Very good. Hang on before you go. Let's give him a hand, and I've got to sum up. I was going to ask you to help me to open this, but I know you're not mechanically inclined.
That's right. I can open boxes, though.
Here. What this says is the Dokimos Award. Dokimos is the Greek word for approved. Presented to Zane C. Hodges in appreciation for your decades of dedicated service and outstanding accomplishments in the Free Grace Movement, Grace Evangelical Society, March 2008. Let's give him a hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We can put that back in here
Okay.
so we don't break it.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.